Okay, good morning, everyone. I was just giving people time to get back from the restroom, which they still are. Welcome to Harvard Divinity School. I don't know how many times you've heard that already, but it's very nice to see you. So I'm Janet Gyatso. I basically teach Buddhism here. I'm the Hershey Professor of Buddhist Studies, but I'm also the academic dean. So that puts me in charge of the curriculum. And this session is going to be about the programs that issue out of this school. And what we're going to do is have each of the people on this panel speak to you for about 7 minutes or so. And I'm going to let you ask 1 or 2 questions after each person talks, so you don't have to wait till the end. But then hopefully, if we have time, we'll also be able to return to questions and answers after everyone has spoken. So as I'm sure you have heard already, Harvard Divinity School prides itself on the degree to which we have diversified our curriculum, especially with respect to the religious traditions that we study. It's changed dramatically in the last 20 years. And we are endeavoring to cover the world's major religions. And in addition, we have opened up all kinds of methodological approaches to the study of religion, as in study of religion and literature, religion and politics, and other areas. So our curriculum and the kinds of courses that you get here are very diverse. There also is a lot of interaction between the more properly, let's say, professional side of the school. So some people come to the school as a way of trying to prepare better for various kinds of professions, including professions in what we very broadly call ministry. We use the word ministry in a very broad sense, not necessarily Christian ministry per se, but helping communities in some sort of social role, taking on leadership. So there's that side, and there are people who are very expressly planning to go on into other academic programs and even enter doctoral programs and PhDs and so on and so forth. But we don't see, and we don't operate as if those two sides were completely divorced from each other. Each informs the other in major ways. It's one of the things that we feel is very important. So people who are coming here to really do work in the community or in the world, and this would be their terminal degree, we believe that you should have a really good education in history and how to read texts and all of the other things that are important in terms of getting a strong education in religion. And we also believe that people who are doing academic work should have their ears and their eyes open and their horizons open to the social implications, the ethical implications of what they're doing. You know, we don't always accomplish all of those things perfectly, and I am here to tell you, you know, this is a school in progress. Anything that we're talking about, how wonderful the school is, I want you to know it's halfway there, or it's partially there. Nothing is perfect. So when you get here, you'll see we're engaged in all kinds of efforts and struggles in order to get our act together better and to get it right. But nonetheless, these are the values that we think are really important. Just one more point, in case it's not clear, that as students who are enrolled in the Divinity School itself, in the various master's programs, you do have the option to take a lot of courses actually outside of the Divinity School. So there are some restrictions on that, and the registrar will tell you a little bit about that when she speaks. In terms of how many. So you can't just like enroll at HDS and then take all your courses in like another school. But you can indeed take a lot. And in fact, a lot of the areas of specialization that we have, for example, my field is Buddhist Studies. We have 2 faculty in Buddhist Studies, myself and Professor Halsey, who's right there. But people who do Buddhist Studies here do a lot of courses in Faculty of Arts and Science because there's a lot of other people. We don't cover everything about Buddhism that one could. So, and that's true for a lot of different fields as well. Okay, so having said all that, I'm going to start with Professor David Holland, who is the Director of Graduate Studies in the doctoral program, and he'll speak first, and then we'll go through the 2 main programs here at the Divinity School.
Let me welcome you as well. I think she's turning it on up there. Good, now? There we go. Welcome to Harvard Divinity School. I'm pleased to be a part of this panel. My role here is to help you think about what might be next for you in terms of pursuing a doctorate in the study of religion. Just by way of history, for much of the institutional history of Harvard Divinity School, there was a doctorate program housed exclusively here, the PhD program. That's a doctorate of theology, and this was distinctive from the doctorate of philosophy, the PhD, offered through the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. About 5 years ago, those two programs were merged. And so any doctorate in the study of religion at Harvard will now be the PhD degree, and it's jointly administered by Harvard Divinity School and the Committee on the Study of Religion in the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. So the faculty of both of those entities are committed to doctoral training and work together effectively to support students in a variety of intellectual pursuits. We have 18 subfields within the PhD program. Those subfields represent a variety of forms of engagement with the study of religion, everything from traditions. Janet already mentioned Buddhist studies, Islamic studies, the history of Christianity. We also organize ourselves by geographical complexes, so East Asian religion, religions of the Americas, that's one of the groups in which I participate, and also by methodologies. So we have scholars here who are primarily interested in engaging religion through the historical method, through the ethnographic method, through theology, through philosophy of religion. So if you think about yourself as identifying with a geography or identifying with a tradition or identifying with a method, there is a way to organize faculty around your interests to support your particular engagement with the subject of religion. The process of admission is, as you might imagine, pretty competitive. We usually have something above 150 applicants to the PhD program in the study of religion. We typically admit around 14 students, so something less than a 10% admissions rate. But preparation, such as you'll receive at Harvard Divinity School, is a great way to position yourself for application. It's hardly a guarantee. We accept students from all over the place, not just through Harvard Divinity School. But the kind of education that you get here will be useful for those of you hoping to pursue a doctoral education in the study of religion. Let me just say a word or two about the structure of the program. So in the PhD program, the first 2 years are committed to coursework, and that coursework has to include 2 required doctoral seminars, what we call 2001 and 2002, which help orient you to the study of religion generally, both in its classical manifestations, its the traditional ways in which it's been studied in the post-Enlightenment era, and the contemporary conversations in the study of religion to get you up to speed on what's going on currently in the conversations that define the field. There's also a language requirement. We require 2 scholarly languages that will enable you to engage a broad array of secondary literatures associated with your field, and then also any research languages, either textual or ethnographic, that may be required for the kind of research that you hope to pursue. Following those first 2 years of coursework, you will take a set of general exams. Those examinations are administered by a committee that will represent the theories and methods of religion as well as your own area of specialization. And following your passing of those general examinations, you prepare a dissertation prospectus, which is approved by the faculty in the Committee on the Study of Religion, and then you're free to pursue your particular area of research interest in the development of a dissertation. The program is, as I mentioned before, is administered both through Harvard Divinity School and the Committee on the Study of Religion, and faculty from both of those entities are available to you to support your research. Usually breaks down about 50-50, about 50% of the faculty participating in the Committee on the Study of Religion are from HDS, and the other 50% are from other areas on campus. We have faculty from English, we have faculty from history, we have faculty from Near Eastern languages and cultures. And so it really is a nice way to both harness the energy and the faculty strengths of this school and connect that to the interests in religion that are prevalent across the campus community. You may be aware that our recently departed president, Drew Faust, had a goal of one Harvard, by which she hoped to integrate the various entities that make up the Harvard campus community into a more cohesive intellectual opportunity for you. And we still have a long ways to go on that, but I will say that the Committee on the Study of Religion is a place where that vision of one Harvard has come together perhaps more closely than other places at the university, where we really do work together to give students the best set of resources for the successful pursuit of the interests that you bring. So that's probably enough about the PhD program.
I'm just going to add one more point to say that those people who are intending to go into a doctoral program, first of all, it is the case, this is not at all a promise, but it is the case that we tend to admit in that class of about 13 or 14 that we admit each year, a high percentage of them are master's students moving up into the doctoral program from this school. We certainly do admit people from other schools as well. Obviously, many more people who are interested in doctoral programs who don't get into the Harvard program nonetheless do get into other doctoral programs around the country, and we try to take good care of our students to help them get into one of the major programs in their field, just so you know that. You do, to some degree, have a leg up. Again, it's not a promise, but it is the case that when you work closely with a faculty knows you very well, and they really like you and they want to support you, then they're going to make a case. Because it's kind of like a horse trading tug of war when we actually have this admission thing of, we can admit so few students that we all have to battle it out. And if you know someone really well and you really support them, you're going to be more motivated to try to get them in. Just so you know that. Would you like to ask a couple of questions to Professor Holland at all? You don't have to, yeah?
Sure. So maybe I'll just project. So the two scholarly languages would be modern languages, and that can be anything that's appropriate to the secondary field in your to the secondary literature in your field. So that there's no particular subset of languages that would qualify as long as you and your advisor agree that these are the languages you need to know to engage the scholarship that is most directly connected to your research. The research languages, again, are defined by field and research. So that could literally be any language that would render you capable of engaging the sources that are important for you. So if it's ethnographic research, that would obviously be a modern language so that you can communicate with the people you want to have serve as your interlocutors. If it's an ancient language, a textual kind of engagement, then that could be something that's not a modern language. So it really is defined by your research, but you have to think about it in those two areas. What enables you to engage the scholarly literature, and what enables you to engage the primary sources.
Note too, by the way, that we have language requirements for the master's degree as well. So you will have some preparation in some of those languages are already, actually. And there's various ways that that works out. Any other question for David Holland? Yeah.
I don't think that the master's here requires that you write a thesis, but is that something that you should do if you're hoping to pursue doctoral study here?
It's a great question. The Master's of Divinity does require a thesis, so there's a senior culminating paper for the MDiv students. The MTS does not require a thesis. There are courses that will give you the opportunity to write extended research papers, and I do think those are of great benefit for people preparing for doctoral training. And we're actually developing within certain methodologies, courses that will give you the methodological training to do that. So I teach a course on religion in the historical method, which is a 2-semester sequence, the second semester devoted to the preparation of a history paper based on archival research. I have a colleague here who does the same in ethnography. So we do look for ways to try and give MTS students, I wouldn't say a comparable experience to the MDiv thesis, but a chance to develop the kind of writing sample that could be used in doctoral applications, and to give you the methodological experience to equip you to jump into PhD work.
Okay, okay, quick question, yeah.
So the funding as it currently stands, and this is always an ongoing conversation, as faculty we're always pushing for more, administration's always resistant to that. So this is a moving target a little bit. But right now it's 5 years of guaranteed funding. That includes 2 years of grant and stipend, so covering tuition and fees and a living stipend. The second set of 2 years, so years 3 and 4, would involve serving as a teaching fellow, where you'd actually be employed by the university, and that too covers tuition and fees and provides you with a living stipend. The totals for those years are right now hovering right around $28,500 in living stipend. And then you have a dissertation completion year, which you can take either that 5th year or you can postpone it for later years. Lots of our students are taking somewhere around 7 years to complete their PhDs, and that can vary depending on subfield. So lots of our students are finding outside money to fill in those gaps, and I will say that that's relatively forthcoming. It's quite rare for a student to really be left without any kind of funding. So if you think about the university is guaranteeing you 5, you kind of have to hustle a little bit for the other 2, but students seem to be able to do that pretty effectively.
Okay, great. I'm going to move now to, and if you have further questions, I'm sorry, but you could either write to Professor Holland, or maybe at the end of this morning we'll be able to address some more questions. But I'd like to ask Professor Hallisey now to speak to the MTS program.
So let me add my welcome to HTS on such a beautiful day. I wouldn't be lying at all if I said that it doesn't get any better than this here. But I would be committing a sin of omission, because I have to add that every day here is just like today. Sunshine, beautiful leaves. We got the fire department to spray the streets so they're glistening, all for you. A few years ago, I went to University of Washington in Seattle, considering whether to work there, and the chair who was trying to persuade me, when I said at one point, it rains here a lot, he said, the rain here doesn't get you wet. I thought, oh, what the lengths that people will do to try to persuade you, what they'll say. But then after I turned down the job and said to people who live in Seattle that he had the nerve to say that the rain in Seattle doesn't get you wet. He said, no, that's true. Then I went to University of Wisconsin, again, someone trying to persuade me, and then successfully to come there. I told the story about the rain in Seattle. He thought, oh, the man doesn't like rain. So he told me, the sun shines more in Madison than anywhere else. And I thought, oh, the lengths that people go to try to persuade you. But when I moved there, it turned out to be true. There's something about Madison being an isthmus between 2 lakes, that it has less clouds than other places. All of this is just to say you're going to hear a lot of advertising today, and some of it is true. Now, Harvard is in Boston, so we have our own lingo. However you got to Boston, you know that in Boston we have squares that are not squares, Harvard Square and so on. You say, where's the square? We have spas that are not places where you get massages or anything. They're corner stores. And if you go into a restaurant and ask for a milkshake, you're going to get shook milk. If you want a milkshake, what's called a milkshake elsewhere in the United States, you have to ask for a frap in Boston. So that means at Harvard we have a Master of Theological Studies, the MTS, which is like a milkshake. There's no theological studies in it except a little bit. It is like a Master of Arts, what other places call a Master of Arts, but for very complicated reasons that you and I don't have enough lifetimes for me to explain it all to, we call our Master of Arts an MTS. It has 18 areas of focus. And just to keep it interesting, they're not the same as the 18 areas of focus in the PhD program. They are organized around religious traditions, like Buddhism and Islam, like cultural areas, like religions of the Americas or religions of South Asia, around themes, religion, ethics, and politics, or religion, literature, and culture, or around methods, religion and the social sciences, or comparative studies. We could say that the MTS at Harvard is like the Republican Party insofar it is a big tent. It's probably the only comparison that you could say between the MTS and the Republican Party, but it's true. So what the Republican Party says about itself, if you're looking for a variety of nuanced positions on important matters, I don't know what the Republican Party is for you, but the MTS is for you, right? So that there are a variety of nuanced positions on important matters being discussed in the MTS program. It is a Master of Arts in a professional school. And so the Divinity School is a professional school among the faculties at Harvard. And you could say in one significant way, when you're thinking about which area of focus is for me, do I identify with a religious tradition or a region of the world or a method or a theme? You say, well, that's kind of hard to choose. You might also say, as a professional school, to think, you're preparing yourself to be a professional in the sense that professionals offer services to other people. They do something that is good for other people. And so one of the things you say, how am I going to figure out what is the good I need to do for other people? You can look at the program goals of the MTS. And so in the program goals, you'll see what collectively the faculty has said, that anyone who gets an MTS from here, it will be in the future capable of doing these good things, a variety of good things for people, because they have these abilities, these kind of capacities that come from being in the MTS, graduating from the MTS program. So in terms of thinking about the MTS and yourself, don't only look at the areas of focus, look at the program goals to say, this is the kind of formation to prepare me to do good things in the future for other people. Now, as a big tent, you'll see some people in the MTS program who know exactly what they're going to do for the rest of their life. They're going to get an MTS, and then they're going to get a PhD, and they're going to get the Nobel Prize, and they're going to have their first child at this age. And so they got to figure it out. But I'm a big proponent of a stage of life, which I'm still in, called figuring it out. And so the MTS program is a very good institutional condition for figuring it out, in which you say, 18 areas of focus, I have no idea. You say, I got to figure it out. And so before someone says, what are you up to? You say, I need some space where I can just figure some stuff out. And this is one of the things. It's a big rollicking program. There's a lot of people in this room. This room is filled with all kinds of courses in the MTS. And you say, people are figuring it out in terms of what is it that I should be? Now, I keep on referring to universities I visited or worked at. Gives a bad impression that people don't like me, so I have to move. But I once taught at Loyola University in Chicago, and good etiquette there was that whenever you met a colleague, you had to tell them a joke. The quality of my life there was a lot higher than here. Now, I've just met you, but I still have that etiquette, so I need to tell you a joke. Let me just say, I don't tell any jokes in classes, only when I meet people. So in this etiquette, there were genres of jokes. It was hard to keep on coming up with a joke. You stole jokes from other people, and there would be like runs on different genres of jokes, parrot jokes, all kinds of jokes. And so one of them was rooms of hell jokes. And they have all jokes have a certain pattern. So let me just give you the pattern, so then I'll tell you the joke for today. So it all sets up. You are at the doors of hell, and Satan says, there's lots of rooms in hell, and you get to choose. And he says, really? I get to choose? And then he says, yeah, show me around. And all the rooms are filled with people having unspeakable horrors and inventive tortures. And then you get to this one room, and there's one room where people are sitting there, up to their necks in feces. If I knew you better, I'd use a more Anglo-Saxon word than feces. And they're up to their necks in feces, and they're sipping tea. And you look and you say, this room is bad, but it's better than those other places with those unspeakable horrors and inventive tortures. So you say to Satan, can I be in here? He says, yeah, but the thing is, once you choose, you can't change your mind. So he says, all right, this room's better than the others. Let me be this. Then he says, all right, you can't change your mind. This is it. And he hears his voice boom out. All right, coffee break's over. Back on your heads. So in that genre, you get to the gates of hell, and Satan says, let me show you around. And one of the rooms looks like Harvard Divinity School. There's a banner outside that says, welcome to Harvard Divinity School. Sun is shining. Streets are glistening with the fire department spraying the streets. There's wood panels and incredible ceilings in all the rooms. And then everyone inside the rooms are smiling. There's classes on books by authors who you never heard the name, and you can't even pronounce the name of the author. There's faculty who are pointing at you and saying, I can't wait to help you. And there's people like me on this panel. We're like attendants on an airplane, going around with the snacks saying, area focus, take 2, take 3. Have as many as you want. There's students all smiling, pointing at you. We want you on our team. There's deans down at the end who are pointing at you saying, you're the change we've been waiting for. You're the way, the truth, and the life. There's librarians who are saying, we're building new buildings for the books you're going to write. And so you say to Satan, can I be here? And Satan says, yeah. But you just can't change your mind. Just remember it. And you say, okay, sign me up. And then right away, the unspeakable horrors start and the inventive tortures start. And you say, hey, what happened? And Satan says, oh, that was Prospective Students' Day. Welcome to Harvard.
Hey, anyone will dare to ask Professor Hellesy a question? Yeah.
I'm Madeline, and I have to say, not get wet the rain in Seattle. I'm from Seattle. But I was wondering how important it is to connect with one or two specific professors when you're applying to the MTS program.
It's always good to connect with professors, all right? Even if they don't seem to be happy to see you darkening their doors. But it's always good. And one of the things is just say, oh, for whatever you're preparing yourself to do, it's important to recognize that what I learned in the classes is not enough. There's like a whole life experience going on. And so talking with professors, in which you get to see them in a larger sense than they are in the classroom, and they get to see you in a larger sense than in the classroom. I don't think it's worth trying to calculate in a cynical way that I need to have someone who will be able to be the person who is getting me through the door. And you say, oh, life is too important for that cynicism. And instead to just say, oh, what I want to do is to be able to learn from people in a fuller sense than may be possible in a classroom. And to just say, oh, for myself, there's no price of admission to that. There's nothing where, like, you say, oh, I have to do this in order to go to the office and ask a question because I'm expecting them to judge me. You say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to learn. I'm here to learn. And so oftentimes, myself, people ask questions when they come, and I said, I never thought about that. That's really great. And that's really interesting. But if you try to say, I just want to say the things that they're going to approve of me on so they can write me a letter of recommendation, you say, oh, you're selling yourself short.
Can I just ask, did you mean how important is it for the process of applying to begin with, or once you get here?
Oh, sorry, misunderstood.
Yeah. Can I just answer quickly? We don't have the same system of advocacy, so the faculty don't weigh in so much on the admissions process. There are some faculty who are on the admissions process, who are in the admissions process, but largely the faculty don't weigh in on that. So that's not so much a thing. Nonetheless, it's always good to connect with professors. Okay, any other further questions? Yeah, over there.
My name is Amir, and I'm wondering, based on your years of experience here in the teaching, what do you think makes up for a successful MTS candidate? What characteristics? Thanks.
For someone who is applying to come in, or someone who's a candidate for a degree?
Not just a candidate for a degree, but a student who was actively engaged in the classroom. What makes for a successful cohort?
I remember being at a point where I was trying to make a decision about going to graduate school. And I went to talk to a teacher of mine about it and told him what I was thinking about doing. And what he said to me, oh, it sounds all very good. The only question I have is, what good is it for anyone else? And that question, well, what good is it for anyone else, I think is the most important question that all of us as academics, both applying and every day onwards until death, is probably the most important question. And so that if you're constantly asking that question of yourself, then you just say, oh, you'll be a very successful candidate.
One more question? Somebody? Yeah.
Thank you. Professor Hallisey, what's your answer to that question for your research, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
I would say over the years it's changed. And different kinds of things that I'm doing, say teaching sometimes may be different. I would say one of the great pleasures for me, great joys of coming to teach at Harvard Divinity School, being part of the master's programs here, is the opportunities it's given me to try to teach people about how to read scriptures and to kind of teach people how to teach other people how to read scriptures in ways that instead of them being, for me, discovering they're not authoritative texts, they're instruments of freedom, and how to kind of allow them to be what they were meant to be. My own work as a specialist on things in the history of Buddhism in Sri Lanka and so on, I say, what I take away, I remember I have an idea that the person I studied with in Sri Lanka who taught me the things that I still am trying to kind of catch up and learn about, that looking back, I realized that he had a vision in his mind that when he started to teach me is that what he wanted me to know was good not only for his great-great-grandchildren, but for mine as well. And that he knew he couldn't reach my great-great-grandchildren. And he needed someone else to do that. And basically giving me a gift, he said, figure it out how to hand it on to the future in a ways that it's not limited to the past that it had. And I would say, oh, lots of what I'm doing, I would say, oh, I understand it as a gift to the future of a certain range of human possibilities that the future has a right to kind of know about them as well.
Great question, thank you. Let's turn to Professor Dudley Rose, who will talk about the MDiv program, and I think also about the ThM very quickly.
Right. Thank you, Janet, and thank you all for being here. I wish I could have Charlie present this. I'm not sure I could possibly match his humor, but I will try. In one respect, as a different answer to the question of what makes you a successful student here. Years ago, when I was a student here, I sat in graduation with a colleague of mine who sat there and mused and finally leaned over to me and said, "You know, I should have read the books." And I would recommend that to you. So the MDiv degree is in some sense, the first degree of Harvard University. The university itself was founded to prepare people for ministry, as an old document says, fearing to leave an illiterate clergy once those who are serving are lying in the dust. And so that began the foray into the ministerial preparation here. The MDiv degree, which spun out of that, was specifically then for the education and preparation of Protestant clergy, and that was its form for a very long time. Here particularly, although to some degree across the country, here particularly that has broadened enormously. It's broadened in the fact that not all of our students by any means prepare for ordained ministry. They do not prepare perhaps for anything that other people would recognizably call ministry. We think of ministry here in the words that Charlie just used of what is the way that you are going to serve, what is the way that your passion is going to meet the needs of the world. And it is no longer simply Christian. A number of years ago, the MDiv degree was changed so that it became an interreligious MDiv, which means that we have students from a variety of religious traditions, many of which you've already heard mentioned here, sitting in the same classes, preparing for what each of them are calling ministry, and talking with one another about what that means, talking with one another about sacred texts of each other's traditions, theological perspectives. And it's not necessarily a conversion exercise or a reductionist exercise. We wouldn't want it to be either one. But we do want people not only to learn about each other, but as Charlie has famously said, to learn from each other. And so that's a big part of what this broad program hopes that students will experience. In terms of our graduates, about 35 to 45% do still go into ordained ministry. So if you're thinking of ordained ministry, this is a great place to do that. If you think what I just said about think about what I just said about the diversity, that is the world in which you will minister, even if you are ministering in a particular tradition. That is the community that you will be in. That is the community that you will serve and have conversations with colleagues and others in. And we think this is a great place to prepare for that. Another 20 to 30% go into college or university teaching onto the PhD. So we have a number of the folks in the MDiv program who plan and do in fact go in to doctoral work. And then the remaining percentage go on to serve in ordained and non-ordained roles in other religious institutions than Protestant Christianity. They go into public policy, nonprofit management, community development, counseling, law, medicine, government, some of which require other degrees. So it's a very broad thrust. What I would want you to notice from this is the border between the MDiv and the MTS is somewhat unclear, right, in terms of what we've just now both been talking about. And so if you think that the MDiv is only for ordination, you may want to consider in your application, do I belong in the MDiv degree? If you think that you are interested in service, that you would like to do internships or field education, that you want to think of the work that you're doing, your intellectual work, as in some sense fitting under that umbrella of ministry, you might want to consider the MDiv. So at least as you apply, be careful. You can make it, you can apply to change degree programs, but we'd rather have you be in the right one to start with, and so pay attention to that. I'm not going to, our degree goals, which are in the student handbook, which I hope you'll get a chance to look at, are wonderful. As Charlie says, they're sales. And we hope we are achieving some of them in terms of the kinds of things that you prepare for. They're broad and they're rich. But let me just say a word about our requirements, because here too, the MDiv degree at Harvard is going to be a little different from most schools that you may be looking at. For the most part, the requirements are met through distribution requirements rather than particular courses. There are only 3 required courses in the MDiv program: the Introduction to Ministry Studies, the Studies in the Theories and Methods of Religion, and then a final seminar, which is a writing seminar for the senior paper that David was referring to earlier. The rest of the courses are met through courses in sacred texts, histories, theologies, and practices. Those run together sometimes. They are the boundaries among those fields aren't sharp always, but we do ask that you take at least 3 courses in sacred texts, but they don't have to be in any particular tradition, because we don't require you, though you may, we do not require you to prepare in any one religious tradition for ministry. You might be preparing for interfaith or multi-religious chaplaincy, for example. And so, though we have some traditional requirements, and many of our students follow a very traditional route to prepare for ordination, following the grid that their denominations will expect of them, and the curriculum allows for that. Many are doing other things as well. We do require language study here, and so that's another area that you will want to be prepared to do 3 courses in one language. And let me just conclude by saying that like the other programs, the schools in the Boston Theological Institute, other schools in the Boston area, as well as other faculties in Harvard, are open to you, and many of the courses in those will meet degree requirements in the MDiv.
Okay, thanks very much. We're a little bit running out of time, so I'd like for us to hear from our registrar first. And, obviously, any questions that you have for any of us, you can either write us emails. Many of us are having special office hours today, such as myself, in the afternoon. I forget which time, but it's on your program somewhere, at something like 2:30 to 3:30 or something. But anyway, Annie Russell is our registrar. Just hear a few words from her, and then we'll let you take a break.
Good morning. I'm glad that you're all here. I'm Annie Russell, and as the registrar here at HDS, I serve 2 constituencies. One is the constituency of my fellow panelists, and the other one is you as students. And how do we serve you as students? We serve you in many of the traditional ways of helping you get registered, helping you take advantage of all of the riches, not only here at HDS, but as my colleagues have mentioned, cross-registering at other Harvard schools and the various schools of what we call the BTI, or the Boston Theological Institute. We also serve you as students in guiding you through and answering what often becomes myriad questions about meeting degree requirements. We are here to support you so that at the end of whether it's your 2 years in the MTS or 3 years in the MDiv, you get to walk across that stage having hopefully met your goals and be ready for the next stage of your life. I will just quickly add that if you have specific questions of what our office does or with regard to some of the mechanics of our degree program, I'm hosting a lunch table at 1 o'clock in Rock. I'll be happy to entertain questions about the mechanics of the degree programs. And also between 4 and 5 p.m., my office is located on the 2nd floor of Divinity Hall. I have open office hours, and my door will be open. I'll be there to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Okay, so we sort of have like half of a minute left. So one question for any of us? From anybody? Yeah, over there.
Can you talk about
Professor Rose, can you please talk about non-religious students in the MDiv program? Non-religious or students in the MDiv program who don't affiliate with a particular faith and their experiences?
The unit, the non-religious.
Oh, non-religious, I'm sorry. I thought you said non-resident. I'm sorry, my hearing is going, I think. So the way the program is structured, we require you to take courses about religions, right? So that is an expectation. It is not an expectation that you are an adherent to any particular religion or any of them. The way in which that has been navigated for the most part has been that students take a number of courses because they come to a Divinity School because they're interested in those courses in religion. They also often take courses in other parts of the humanities, some of which can fulfill requirements in our program. And they take courses at other schools like the law school, the business school, depending on what they're working on. Most people that we find today that are coming here as nuns, to use that terminology, are nonetheless thinking about community and spirituality pretty seriously. And so that's a way in which they will address and appropriate courses even in other traditions to think about those categories.
But if I'm not mistaken, it's no longer the case, as it was up to recently, that MDiv students declare a religious tradition that they're specializing in. Right. So that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, thank you.
But it is still regulated that you need to take some courses that are outside of that you need to have some breadth requirements as well. But yeah, there's a disjuncture between what you're studying. There's not necessarily a connection between what you're studying and who you are.
Right, thank you.
Okay, guys, so it's really great to see you. As I said, we are open to answering your questions in other venues. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself. Go outside and look at the beautiful trees, and we'll see you later.